Good morning, traders. It is Wednesday, the 16th of May, 2018. It's 8:01 a.m. Chicago time. Thanks for joining me. Sorry about yesterday. Comcast has been very inconsistent with their broadband service for my home office. The good news is, because of that, I was able to find fiber. Fiber coming into the house. Those issues will go away. Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. The current market stance, allocation is to safety somewhat this morning, seeing the 10 years, the yen, the dollar, and the bonds, as well as the Bund up, everything else down. The DAX is an anomaly, up 34 points or 0.26%, but overall, the market seems to be allocating to safety this morning. Now, yesterday we did gap down in the indices, at least in the S&P. We were just not able to push into the gap after the open, so it looks a little bit weak. It looked a little bit weak, and it continues to be so. This morning we're just inside of the range, inside of value in the S&P, below yesterday's close. Overall, that's how things are shaping up. Of course, it's there were some numbers released this morning. Not seeing a huge amount that would put us through, that would disrupt us today. Of course, just pay attention to crude oil inventories. There's still a lot in terms of central bank speakers today. Again, if you need a calendar recommendation, just tweet at me or send a message to futurestrader71.com/contact, and I'll link you in. Looking at yesterday's plan, of course, we didn't have a trader bite, but I did post the main plan for yesterday. Let me put that up here. The main two plans. Yesterday was a bit of a scramble for me. Not fun. All right, so here we go. Just a quick review of yesterday. The main plan yesterday is an attempt to push into the gap zone, fail, and get down into 2,700 and the stock zone at 2,700 and a quarter. So I was looking for 27.16 to fail, roll over, and get down into 2,700 and a quarter. Remember, these levels are put on ahead of the open. This is an image from what happened before the open yesterday. I posted it before the open. So there's the high, 27.16. That's a stock zone. And the low, 2,700, was also a stock zone. We had 2,700 and a quarter, and I think the low yesterday was 2,700 half. The high was around 27.17. The stock zone is 27.16.75. So yet again, we saw the same thing the day before. The high, low, and the LVN were kind of spot on with the stock zones. What does that mean? Does that mean I'm a clairvoyant or superstar? It does not. You can do the same. You can review and create these stock zones yourself. My point with pointing that out is that the market is actually trading methodically and is testing areas methodically, and that's important to note because it gives us a better idea of who is likely to be in control. Currently, short time frame to short intermediate time frame traders are in control. We're seeing a lot of respect for prior lows, prior highs, IBs, levels like that are getting a lot of respect. So we're seeing that. We're seeing that kind of action. So that's the primary scenario. Yesterday, which worked out pretty much dead on perfectly. The secondary scenario that I posted is an attempt lower. So we have an open test drive, or just an open auction out of range with a downward skew that pushes into around 2705, 2703, and then we get an impulse back to close the gap later in the session. That did not happen. Here's what actually took place. We opened, tested up tiny, went up to 2716, 75, and dropped right into 2703. These tests were kind of brutal. These pushes up. These pushes up are quite interesting. I mean, we pushed down, then we took the mid and pushed up, only to consolidate and then continue to breach the IB low by one tick. So at first, this looked like a one tick failed auction right here. So that's bullish. And then we get a double bottom with a one tick failed auction at the IB low for a push to 27.14 and a quarter, 10.5 points. That's pretty much impulsive. Impulsive expected to pull back to about mid of the swing and continue higher. Nope, comes right back and extends the low down. So found that difficult. Those of you who are in convergent trading and were following along, you probably saw that I was taking some losses. But later in the session, we did get a pretty decent push against the point of control. The delta was heavy throughout the session. Look at this delta, just drops. The market comes back almost to the open, which is a zero delta. All it can muster up is negative 7,200. And then as we consolidate, the delta pulls back down, consolidates, and as we drop, we get a lower low on the delta. We push 27.14, which is really only a couple ticks from this high. Of course, you have to respect the time of day, but it's just, to me, for the last 2 weeks or so, the buyers are just participating very poorly. The aggression from the buyers is not all there. Buyers are able to gain in terms of price, but they're not able to hold price, and they're not able to do so with conviction, with aggression, and that's what delta, the volume delta, is really telling us. So as we continue to trade, I do notice in the volume scope in other areas, as we push to the high. I'll give you an example of this. I don't show this chart often, but even in the overnight, we push up on 941 delta and then immediately get a large delta behind it. And this is a kind of a common thing that we see. It's able to float up, and it's doing so on low aggressor volume. In other words, traders lifting the offer, and then immediately sellers come in and hit the bid pretty hard, and we see that going back and forth all the time. So yesterday we finished in a what is a normal day, not normal variation, normal day, minimal extension down. Market finishes in the middle. We had VWAP and the mid in the middle, overlapping each other or close by. Yesterday was a balanced day. The profile is not telling us much other than they rejected prices up top. The low yesterday, even though it shows somewhat of a taper, the low yesterday was relatively weak. One second. The low was relatively weak, and so participation, again, the big theme here, the regime we're in, is that participation on the buy side has been pretty poor. So I've been emphasizing scaling in to the short side relatively more aggressively than the buy side in the current regime. We are still below the 2720 key area, and just floating around the 2700 century, which is a big low volume node, big composite low volume node, and a key stock zone area. So yesterday we managed to push. We didn't quite fill the gap completely yet from the 10th, but we're not able to get off the floor yesterday. So I expect the same theme today, except we're opening, as you can see here, we're opening. This is the opening. This is the last print. We're opening in the black area, which is the value area. So in range, in value, and it's likely to be quite choppy on the open. Okay. Going into the overnight session. Sorry, I've got a lot of stuff going on at the same time. Just need to figure out a way to curtail that. The overnight session, just garbage action. There was nothing in the overnight session. We did have okay volume, but overall 10 points of range and completely sideways. The overnight session is telling us that it's completely in balance. Pretty good kurtosis in the middle. What this is saying is it's coiling and coiling and coiling and coiling and coiling and coiling and coiling into yesterday's range. So coming into today, given where we are, we have a fair amount of compression after the gap down. So today, I'm most likely going to trade from the outside in, meaning I'm going to fade the edges on the buy side, especially. But eventually, this is likely to break. We are likely to break, and the way it's set up right now, it's likely to break down through the 2700 and start exploring the lower prices from there. So the overnight session, all it's telling us is we've consolidated inside of yesterday's range. We didn't really test anything or accomplish anything, but as we drop through 2700, we start to work our way through some areas that are poorly auctioned. What's the key area that's poorly auctioned? Right in between these two stock zones here, the 2690.75 and 2681.75. 2681.75 being a quadruple top, weekly high, and so on. That's my main target down below. This is the golden nugget right here. If we fall below 2700 and I see that the aggressors are on the sell side, this is what I'm going to be shooting for, 2681.25. But that puts us quite a bit of ways from yesterday's close, so we may not be able to get it today. But that's the key repair area from below. If you look at the daily, and I'll squish this chart a little bit to show you where that's coming from. We have multiple tests in this area right there, and then we finally break through with pretty good volume above there. So we broke out of this resistance. So it's support turned resistance, and then now likely to be tested from above. So pay attention to that. That's just a kind of a bigger picture view of what's going on there. What's the plan for today? What are the key plans for today? Let's get rid of the flex. The key plans for today, looking for a pretty choppy open given the overnight action. So this morning, I'm looking for an open auction in range. Looking for to test yesterday's close right here. Potentially consolidate, get up into the value area, but eventually I'm looking for an impulse down that eventually tests yesterday's low at 2700.5, and then the 2700, and I'm looking for a pretty big break through the 2700 down to the naked point of control at 2696, and then eventually to start working its way. So look for pullbacks to work its way down to 26.90.75. Again, the extended targets 26.81.75, 26.81.50. Big area for me that I'm going to be watching and targeting. So overall consolidation on the open. We do have balance from yesterday. We had a balance overnight, so we do have some energy to push through. And that's what I'm looking for as the key plan by far. Alternatively, open auction that tests lower, that immediately starts testing lower. So we just chop around at the very beginning. We start to test lower and we break the 2700. Find a bounce area, come back into the range, and then consolidate in here to eventually test the balance again and consolidate a little bit more as opposed to flushing. This is tricky because eventually what this means is a pullback that would be sold will result in a loss. But to me, that's just the price you pay to see the next card. Like in poker, you have to ante up to see the next card in poker, and that's just what the loss is. So that's the next key plan. The third key plan, open test drive lower. And if we do get an open test drive lower with no open auction, then we are likely to push right through this 90.75 and have a pretty dramatic down day today. One that's going to exceed the close to close sigmas I have on my chart. So we may see a 30-point range and so on. So that's the third plan. Those are all very much in play today. Just pay attention. Today is likely to be a mover, so it's not one you want to snooze on. For those of you who have been writing in and asking, how come you're not posting on Twitter and where are you, what's going on? It's true. I apologize. I have not been able to keep up and post on Twitter. I'm focusing on Convergent Trading. Check it out, convergenttrading.com. I'm focusing my attention on those people who are part of that community, who are investing and building the community by being a member. It's not just a chat room. It's basically set up. It's set up as almost as a prop firm with different rooms, and the imperative is that we focus on the action that's in front of us, and to speak to each other as traders rather than to come into a chat room where there's entertainment and so on. I'm not calling trades. I'm talking context all day long and discussing what I'm looking at. When I do something, I post the screenshots of what I'm doing. So that's where I'm at. It's very difficult to do that as well as put messages out to the market. The software we have is not integrated with Twitter. That's one of the customizations that's being worked on. Once that happens, I'm able to decide when to send something out to Twitter that I think may have an impact that many followers might want to follow. But for now, I do intend to come back to Twitter and participate there. It's important to me. However, the overall focus right now is on Convergent. I'll leave you with that thought. Good luck today. Take care.